Guys, we did it again. So a month ago now. Yeah, about a month ago. Or what am I saying? A month ago? 3 weeks ago from the Tennessee game. My first live. We lose to Tennessee. Overtime. Heartbreaker. This time, whole team gets hurt. And we lose a close game, tied game with 5 minutes left to Georgia. What's up, Daniel? Daniel Berry Sports Highlights. Thanks for coming to the show, man. You know, it's depressing. I mean, there's only so much a fan can go through. Wow. My Jags are making a comeback right now on the Eagles. I got that right there. We got this show to do. But, let's start the show with some happier news. Some other things that happened around the country. Make sure my mic level's good. FSU loses 35-11 to North Carolina. FSU looking as bad as they can. So at least that rival is being put in its place. 1-8 on the season. I mean, I just could not imagine if we were 1-8 right now. Please. Miami, another game where their defense just looks atrocious. I mean, that Duke offense is not good. They give up 32, 31 points to Duke. So, hey, at least we can take some happy victories in Miami and Duke. Not looking that good. I mean, not Duke, Miami and FSU. Don't think Miami's going to win a championship, but Cam Ward could still win the Heisman. We need to work on that. Some other big stuff across the country. South Carolina boat raced A&M. Don't think anybody saw that coming. Like, maybe upset for South Carolina, but touchdown Jags. Wow. Trevor Lawrence, man. What a guy. And speaking of Trevor Lawrence, Clemson got dogged on by Louisville. Is Jeff Brom a potential head coaching candidate for the Gators in the future? If that job opens up, I can see Brom being a name to look out for. Still know if he wants to leave his alma mater. I think his alma mater. Hometown team, at least. I mean, let's start breaking down this Florida versus Georgia game. Slow start to the game. Honestly, I think the biggest part of this game was the turf. I mean, it is the grass, but the grass was made accidentally at the University of Georgia. It's a weird story, but incidents happened, and it happened at Georgia where this grass was made, and it's put on the field for this game between Florida and Georgia, also for Jacksonville. I've seen plenty of injuries happen on it. And I mean, man, this game was as bad as it gets for injuries. I mean, we saw ETN. He was hurt. I'm not sure if it was the turf or not. I mean, we were seeing players go down left and right for each team, with the main big name being, sadly enough, DJ Lagway. I mean, man, what are we to do if DJ Lagway can't return? I mean, we trot out Yale transfer walk-on Aiden Warner, who apparently beat out Clay Millen for the backup job. Not sure what's happening there, because Clay Millen was a very high recruit, went to Colorado State. I think some services had him as a 4-star, but I think consensus high 3-star. So that's still a good guy to have as a 3rd string, 4th string maybe now, QB. But, I mean, you get to the point to where kind of feel like you got to put him in. I mean, Aiden Warner saw snaps in the Samford game where he actually had a touchdown. But that's against Samford. That's another FCS level school, like Yale is at the Ivy League. You're telling me his first FBS experience is going to be against probably the most talented defense in the nation in the Georgia Bulldogs. I mean, 5 stars left and right. No, he was not put in a place to succeed. And not even necessarily from a bad coaching or bad talent perspective. Because I think there's going to be things that we talk about later on that was really good. And I mean, honestly, one of my biggest surprises was coaching. So, I mean, let's just start from the beginning of this game. Georgia gets the ball. The Gators find a way to get a stop. They got like 2 first downs, but then the Gators got a stop. Hey, any stop is good, especially in a rivalry game that was the last 4 years, besides 2022 wasn't even close. In 2022, Georgia still ran away with it in the 4th quarter. So it's nice to see us get some stops. Offense goes out there, gets a first down. Damn. But after that first down, kind of struggle. It's hard to blame an offense for struggling when you're facing the best defense in the country. And it wasn't necessarily bad play calling. Could have been a little bit of a talent difference. But whatever, we punt back. We punt Georgia back the ball. Georgia then, I can't remember if they score, if they kick a field goal or make them punt again. But then we get to the Gators' next drive. I think it's 3-0 Georgia at this point. It's a little worrisome because even when we got the stop, they still drove down a little bit. It was kind of a bad throw from Beck that made a punt. Our offense, the first play, we get an 8-yard run. The next play is an incomplete pass. And then on 3rd and 2, we give it to Ball. Ball goes to make a jump cut to hit the hole for an easy first down, and he slips. Honestly, we saw a bunch of slipping from both teams in this game. This really was the first big example of it. I mean, there's a bigger one later on, but that could be a big difference because I feel like the offensive line throughout this entire game did as well as they could. And they still did really well. So I'm not even trying to undermine how good they can do. Because this is a very good offensive line when it has some help. But we have to punt it back. And this is where the game starts to turn. Georgia drives down to about the midfield, past midfield. Carson Beck throws his first interception to Devin Moore. Throws it into double coverage. Not sure what he was reading. Then Moore gets it. Little return. We're about the 40, 50-ish yard line. First play action, deep bomb, Aiden Mizell, touchdown Gators. This is the DJ Lagway that could lead the Gators to an upset and to the promised land, hopefully, in the next few years. Florida, all the momentum in the world, and it's not even close. The next drive. Aaron Gates. Georgia drives down a little bit again, about to midfield. They're on like a second down. And Carson Beck throws into triple coverage. Aaron Gates. And Gates gets a really nice return. Oh my goodness, Saquon is too good, guys. But Gates gets a really nice return. Great field position for Florida. And we do 6 straight runs for nearly 40 yards. We get to the red zone. Georgia then on first down, they finally are able to stop us and make us lose a yard. Then we have an incomplete pass. I'm pretty sure Lagway threw it away. Yeah, because there's nothing open for him. And then on 3rd and 11, nothing really open for him. This Georgia defense is really tough to score on in the red zone, especially if you're a true freshman QB. But hey, you have all the momentum. Take your 3 points. Go up 10-3 on Georgia, which we do. And it was just magnificent, man. I mean, we know we're going to have more opportunities with Lagway to throw it deep. At least we thought. We end up stopping Georgia. They punt. 1st and 10. What's that, guys? We stop Saquon on 3rd down. Nice. But 1st and 10. Lagway does a fake pass. Goes to scramble. goes to make a left cut on his left foot, and he slips. And I was like, man, this turf. He grabs his left hamstring, and he's not getting up. Man, at that, I was at this game, everybody. That's why I didn't do a live post-game show yesterday. I was at this game. I didn't get home until about 10:20, 10:30. I had lost my voice. I'm already doing my best to do this right now. I was in the Florida section, obviously, myself included, everybody. The reaction of just disbelief. Wide left. Jags gonna stop. But man, I kind of lost all hope right there. Because I knew we're either trotting out Aiden Warner, who's going to be, as I already said earlier, going to be getting his first reps against an FBS level opponent and not just FBS. This isn't, I was about to say Vandy, but Vandy's actually good now. This isn't Mississippi State. This isn't Purdue. This isn't Northwestern. This is the Georgia Bulldogs, the best talented, most talented team in the country. Warner comes out there. I do like what Billy did. He kind of showed that he wasn't scared to throw it. Although I kind of feel like he digs into that a bit too much. But fans are all going to have their different opinions on how that should have been ran. Probably should have ran it more. But that's not something I'm going to complain about. Punt to Georgia. Defense still gets a stop. They put us in bad field position. Then number 7 for Georgia, their corner, I can't remember his name off the top of my head, makes a big hit on a screen. Oh, my goodness. See, everyone loves to talk about arm strength and how far you can throw it. But underrated part of arm strength is being able to throw it fast on those RPO screens. Because you watch that ball, it hangs in the air forever. You can blame Elijah Badger as much as you want for giving up that hit to DK. But doggone it, that ball needs to be there like a second earlier so DK can react and try to win that one-on-one. If he wins that one-on-one, we're getting a first down plus 15, 20 maybe yards. Then we're talking a difference of, well, we end up punting. Georgia drives down the field enough to where they get to a 53-yard field goal. They get it. They kick the field goal. They make it. It's 10-3. We have a minute 48 left. And I'm thinking, okay, I mean, we're probably taking to half. Which Billy probably is also thinking. He calls run plays with Jacoby Jackson. And the offensive line's creating space. Jacoby Jackson hits it up. And then we're able to run. We get to about the 44-ish yard line, 40-yard line. We're at a 4th and 4 with 10 seconds left. Decide to go for a quick play. No timeouts. And it's a quick screen to DK. A tight throw. That was a great throw by Warner. Great catch by DK. And we're able to get a 53-yard field goal. I mean, hey, that was impressive. I mean, if this offensive line can keep doing this in the second half, we have a 7-point lead. We get ball to start the second half. I actually started to build my hope back. Come back. You come back from the second half. I have some hope. First drive, nothing. We just can't throw the ball. I mean, as I was saying earlier, the offensive line was doing as good as it could. When there's a QB in there who Georgia knows can't throw in them, they're just going to load up the box, put 8 in the box against 6, 7. I mean, they had safeties that come down and make plays like Malachi Starks. They get their starting safety and starting star Jonell Aguero and Rod Jackson back. I mean, man, it's going to be tough to run. And yeah, it is. Then Georgia gets the ball back. They drive to about midfield. And it happens again. Oh, man, I thought we were winning still. We get pressure. We rush 4. We drop them in the Tampa 2. We act like we're bringing a blitz. We don't. And then Pup blitzes the gap. and makes Beck. What was Beck doing? As he's getting sacked, Beck just throws it up. And then the best fullback in the nation, our best run stuffing defensive ends, Jack Pyburn, who's dropped back in coverage, goes up for it, holds onto it as he's being tackled to the ground, gets the interception. I'm thinking Jack Pyburn needs to be promoted from fullback to tight end. That was a great catch by him. Defense showing everything in the world. I mean, goodness gracious, they came out on fire this game. Giving up 6 points to the most talented team in the country. They put up 30-something points on Bama. And they're just doing it all. Second. Okay. So let me check something real quick. So I think then what happens next... Let me double check. I don't want to be wrong here. Okay, so that's before half. Got that. Okay. But then, after that, we get a first down. But then we end up having to punt. Georgia's offense finally is able to get it. I mean, the defense has been on the field for so long at this point. It's almost the end of the third quarter. We've been on the field offensively probably for all of 2-3 minutes, if that. And George is able to score a touchdown. I mean, you're going to give up a touchdown to Georgia eventually. We're not the most talented team on defense, and even though we're playing well, they've been on the field forever. So... it's 13-13. Offense still isn't doing anything. But we actually get some momentum. We get a 9-yard run, 8-yard run. Then we get to a 3rd and 10. And I'm thinking, yeah, we're not converting this. Aiden Warner somehow does. He makes a 10-yard pass, exactly 10 yards. And we get the first down. After that, we end up getting stopped. We're at the Georgia 33. Sorry. I forgot to mention, on this drive, there was a Georgia unsportsmanlike conduct for a throat slash that the Georgia player did in celebration, just his hands. They call it, so they have to punt from there. They have to kick from like the 25, whatever. So we get the ball at the 35-yard line. Good field position. Get a little bit of a drive going, 2 first downs. But then we get to like a 3rd and 2, 3rd and 3, or 4th and 2, 4th and 3. Go for a field goal, 50-yard field goal. Hey, we hit a 53-yarder before halftime. Well, Smack wouldn't even be able to get the chance to get this off. It's a bad snap, bad hold. I'm not sure, or bad catch. I'm not sure what happened. The ball goes flying 20 yards down the field. Georgia gets it, obviously, it was 4th down, and they have an easy opportunity to take the lead, and they do. Georgia ends up 3 plays later, touchdown. They only had to go 36 yards. Now it's 20-13, Georgia. Game's all but over, I feel like, at this point. The offense couldn't do nothing. Defense isn't going to be able to score for the offense, so the defense has been on the field for most of the second and first half, end of the first half. We punt. We force Georgia to punt. We punt again. We force Georgia to punt. Hey, the defense has been on the field this entire game, it feels like. This entire second half especially. And we keep getting stops, a 3 and out. And then it happens. 26-yard pass to Elijah Badger. Big run, holding call, 1st and 10. So now it's 1st and 20. We get a nice 8-yard run, and then the next play, Jacoby Jackson takes it into the end zone. And he ties it 20-20. 5 minutes left. I'm like, man, this is really going to hype up the defense. They're going to get a stop, and then we're going to keep running it down the and we're going to kick a game-winning field goal. Well, it starts looking that way. First play, 5-yard pass. Okay. Second down, negative 2-yard run. They're at a 3rd and 7. We just got a 3 and out the previous drive. Gators are looking great in this spot. Then Beck decides to turn off dummy mode and 34-yard pass, 21-yard run, 7-yard run, 10-yard pass, touchdown, Georgia. Oh, man, it's hard to blame him. I mean, it's like you do have momentum because the offense got the score, the crowd, Florida crowd's into it. But, I mean, sometimes you just can't do it because of the fact that you're so wore out. And that's what happened. After a touchdown, the first play, Aiden Warner throws a horrible pick six. Or not pick six, sorry. He throws a horrible pick, and then 2 plays later, touchdown. This game's over. Yeah. I mean, what can you ask from Aiden Warner? I mean, they're down to your 3rd or 4th string running back. There's just not much you can ask of him. And guys, like, what do you guys think of the game? Like, what did you like and not like from the team? It's like I feel like we did all we could with what we were given. The Gators, without starting QB, backup QB, possibly, we don't know yet, the 3rd string QB. We don't know if he's got behind Aiden Warner or if Warner beat him. Or, sorry, if Warner or if Millets hurts. So, at worst, our starting 2 QBs. We're down starting running back Montreal Johnson. We're down backup running back Treyon Webb. Although I do think our running backs are so good, so that's not much of an excuse. It's just, some more of the numbers. We're down probably our best returning wide receiver coming into the season in Trey Wilson. On the defensive side of the ball, corner 1, Jason Marshall out at the beginning of the game. Corner 2, Devin Moore gets hurt after the 2nd interception. Corner 3, Jakeem Jackson's been out for a couple weeks, maybe over a month now. Corner 4, Dijon Johnson gets hurt in the beginning of the 3rd quarter. So corner 5, Cormani McClain, he's now our corner 1. So they know we have to play at our 2nd quarterback spot. Because, I mean, how many teams have 6 quarterbacks that they feel like they can actually put on the field and they don't have to redshirt? Is now our backup safety, Jaquez Bridges, who had been starting safety because the starter, Asa Turner, has been out since he got injured in week 1 against Miami. So then the backup who was starting is now have to start at corner. So now you have to pull the 3rd string safety, Bryce Thornton, in to play for already the backup. I mean, goodness gracious. And we still only lost this game by 14 points. We got Donnie Wilkerson. Y'all going to have a really good team next year. I do have some things to say because there are some things that could interfere with that. We do need to see a few more things this year. I mean, damn, the team just showed a lot of heart, passion. I mean, if you look at it, since that Mississippi State game, since the bye week, this has kind of looked like a top 10 team. I mean, probably Napier for the first 2 years and first month of the season has been horrible at UF. Recruiting subpar, or I'll say talent acquisition has been okay. On paper, recruiting subpar. On the field play, horrible. I mean, but then the past month, since that bye week, destroyed UCF, who just destroyed Arizona. I mean, goodness gracious, that was an insane blowout for UCF. Seemed like they found their guy in Dylan Rizek. So we just 24-13, but I mean, we just ran out the clock. Then the Tennessee game, top 10 Tennessee team, beat Alabama. I mean, they lost to Arkansas, but I mean, everyone's going to have that game. But so we look good against Tennessee. Should have won that game, really. I mean, goodness gracious. It's on Billy for losing that, but you got to give the team credit for really should have won that game. Destroy Kentucky. I mean, we saw this Kentucky team hang with Georgia, though this Kentucky team is on a downward spiral. This is probably the worst Kentucky team we've seen since 2016. 2016? Yes, I think 2016. So there is that. But, I mean, it's still a team that beat Ole Miss, still a team that almost beat Georgia. So it's a team that still has that high ceiling, but their floor right now, their hitting is just bad. So it's okay, you still lost that Tennessee game, and those two teams we destroyed in UCF, Kentucky, aren't very good. So it's this Georgia game is really going to be telling of what we can and what we are. And, I mean, if DJ Lagway doesn't get hurt, I'm very confident we win this game. I know we have a Georgia fan tagging in. He made a comment about the team being good next year. But, I mean, even those early drives, I mentioned how we slipped. So it's we didn't score in those first 3 drives. Can't remember exactly. But I did see a lot of stuff that I liked. I'm going to bring this to Rob. But Rob, when you look at it, when he got the team going, this is probably the most injured team in the SEC right now. When I look at maybe Missouri, but they're down to their backup QB, but I don't think they're that hurt outside of that. They still got Luther Burden, they still got the receivers, they still got their running backs. I'm not 100% sure. But it's man, if Lagway will make a big difference with the offense, and y'all's defense already very good. Nothing for y'all to be ashamed of. So it's people are going to point out how Lagway only had 2 completions, which yes, is true. But the run game was working. Maybe that unfortunate slip, a Georgia player making a great play, which again, this is the best, most talented defense in the country. Maybe not playing to their potential, but it's still a really good team that's dominated us in Billy's tenure, and Mullins last season with us. So it's you still got to give him credit for that. But, I mean, it's going to be tough. We don't know the results of Lagway's MRI. He's getting one today, got one today. I'm sure we'll figure out either tomorrow or Wednesday at the very least, because that's when the injury report comes in. I will make a video on the update for that when that comes out. But if we can get Lagway back, this is a team that can still compete. Tough 3-game stretch. But I'll get into the possibilities for next year in the future. But before we get to that, guys, I just want to remind you, make sure you like and subscribe to the channel. If you're a Florida fan, if you're a Texas fan who's watching, getting ready for their game in a week, if you're on the Twitter, go check out all of the Voice of College Football channels. Got a great thing going here, trying to expand it. So make sure to like, subscribe, and check everybody else out. Before we get into this, top 5, bottom 5. This is a real interesting one because it's a loss. We lost by 14. This was a really hard list to make because I liked a lot of what I saw, and it's the things we did bad. It's kind of out of our control. There's a couple things we could have done better in the past where we had the depth to hang. I feel like we did have the depth to hang. We just didn't have the QB. But we need a positive note. So let's start with the number 5 on the top 5. This team was very competitive. People were telling me after that Texas A&M game, even going into that A&M game, that the team had completely quit. Billy was 100% going to be fired, which he still might be fired. We'll get into that. But I was told this team had quit, but that's just not true at all. Maybe we see it now that Lagway might be out for the remainder of the season or a couple games or whatever. Maybe we see it. But I mean, man, this team really likes Billy Napier. They really like playing for this guy. I mean, you got to give him credit for that. I mean, how many teams have we seen that are starting 1-2, blowout losses? They're about to go into probably the toughest stretch in college football history. That doesn't include postseason games or conference championship games, and still put up a fight that most teams couldn't, even if they're having good seasons. I feel like that deserves a ton of credit, and I'm going to give them credit as a number 5 spot. Number 5, this is even honest, man. I talked about it earlier. We just got to go with the turf, man. The grass they use, Everbank Field. I mean, man, what can I say? I'm a Jags fan, and it's like I don't see as many injuries, but those NFL players, they get used to it playing on that turf. Was that okay? They get used to it. But goodness me, that took out everybody. At the start of the third quarter, it felt like 4 straight plays. The Gators, or I think one of them was Georgia, where a player had an ankle or a leg injury of some sorts. I mean, I talked how this turf or grass was incidentally made at the University of Georgia. My voice is still not the best from the game, but I mean, that's the bottom 5. The turf, I mean, it's crazy to blame a field for a loss. But I mean, if there's a better turf, because you could see when Lagway cuts, the turf kind of gives out on him. I mean, that could be the difference between a win and a loss right there. Number 4 on the good. So this could be number 1. He was this player, because I tried to keep it away from players. But I mean, had an over 87 grade on PFF. Aaron Gates. Oh my goodness. I talked before this game about maybe we have a starting battle between Aaron Gates and Sharif Denson. But honestly, I think Gates has proven that he should be the starter. And it's not the fact that Denson's bad. It's the fact that Denson's probably a 7 out of 10, maybe 8 out of 10 right now. Gates is playing like a 9 out of 10 who can only grow higher. His potential is through the roof, and he's definitely proven that he should be the starter. When he got his interception, that first down, he got a TFL on the running back in a great open field solo tackle. Or not open field, but a great solo tackle that we've seen our players miss all the time. The second down, there was a fit. He gets back there, and as part of the TFL on their screenplay, ends up getting called back because Desmond Watson, his hand is so big that I think he grabs the jersey and face mask at the same time. Although I feel like his arm was under the face mask, so it's kind of weird right there. I don't know. But he was part of that tackle, and he didn't commit the face mask. So that would have been another TFL for him. And then he gets to pick. He reads the QB's eyes well. And I don't know what Beck saw. Maybe Beck couldn't see over the 400-pound defensive linemen that are 6'6" in front of him. So he didn't see Gates just crouching behind him. And then Gates just goes off, picks that ball with ease, has a great return too. I talked about it, has both of his parents were athletes, and he's a Gator. I think they were Gator alums as well. So he is well deserving of this spot. He honestly should be number 1, but I didn't want to put the players that high individually because I feel like it's a great team effort. Number 4. So I talked about this, kind of how we just went back with us being very competitive. Are we going to see the same competitiveness throughout the rest of the season? I mean, that's a tough loss, a rivalry game where you win this game. There's no reason that theoretically you could win now. I'm not saying we would, or I'm not saying I would even pick that. But I mean, if you can beat Georgia and looked like the team could do it, then you could beat Texas, you could beat LSU, you could beat Ole Miss, you'll easily beat FSU. I mean, goodness. But this kind of might kill the team type because we don't know how this offense is going to go out there and look. We don't know who's going to be playing on offense. So the defense, even if they come out hype, I mean, just like this Georgia game, they got wore out because they were on the field forever. I mean, maybe you keep it close in the first half with Texas, which I'll get into later with my predictions. But then there's just going to be a point where just your body's physically unable to. You're mentally exhausted. I mean, Texas is still a really good team with a lot of athletes. So maybe better offensive athletes, probably better offensive athletes than Georgia. At points, we'll get into that. But number 3, I don't know if anyone would have predicted that this would be on here at this point in the season and this point in Billy's tenure. I'm going to give it to coaching. I mean, this coaching staff had this team ready to play Georgia. As he said, the early offensive drives, they were a slip away from maybe this game being a 2-score game before Lagway gets hurt. I mean, they had him ready. They had him prepared defensively for what Georgia was going to do offensively. We rattled Beck early on. The offense rattled their defense a bit early on, hit the deep ball. A lot of people were comparing it to Steve Spurrier when we got the first interception and then play action touchdown, the first play. A lot of things people had to complain about Napier, so I'm going to give him credit for that. Damn. So I'm going to give him credit for that. Defensive coordinators Austin Armstrong and Ron Roberts, I'm going to give them credit for it. We've seen it many times where this Georgia offense just maybe we get a stop because of pure luck. But I mean, they were getting multiple stops to the point where you can't say, oh, it's a fluke. They were getting stops to the point where you say, man, this Georgia defense is good. We've seen it the past month. We're seeing it now. This Georgia defense can hang with the best of them. Number 3. So number 3 is depth. This is hard to say because here's the thing. If you're missing, like we're already, before the season started, we're missing our technically third string, but that person gets a ton of playing time, nose tackle Jamari Lyons. So coming into the season, you're already missing a player who was really good as a freshman last year. But man, the team is just so hurt. As like I have to put depth on here because I mean it honestly wasn't a lot of bad. I'm not gonna blame Warner for how he plays. Like, I mean, I just had to put depth on there because it really was probably the biggest coaching mistake you could have made. I mean, I don't know how many teams in the country that has 6 cornerbacks they can trot out there against Georgia or any other Power 5 school where they're going to feel comfortable. Don't know how many teams have 3 valuable starting QBs that can go out there and beat Georgia. Like, I'm just going to say it. I don't know if you put Oregon in the spot that Florida was at, where Dylan Gabriel goes down and then Dante Moore goes down, where they're having to play Austin Novosad, that he's going to go out there and be able to beat Georgia. So I will say one thing that Warner did, besides the interception, he didn't really put the ball in harm's way. He didn't lose us the game until the point where he had to win it for us. So that is one plus I will give him. Yeah, I'm sorry for drinking. It's just my bad voice, man. Number 2, I'm going to give it to the offensive line, man. I mean, the unit as of a whole, our tight ends blocked pretty poorly in this game. Don't want to say them, but like their grading wise, they were pretty bad. Especially Arliss. Hayden Hansen, I mean, you're a tight end, you know, he's a blocking tight end in particular, so you would like for him to block better. But he is blocking some of the best linebackers and defensive ends in the country. So I will give him some credit there or some leeway there. But the offensive line, they didn't give up too much pressure until we had to put in Aiden Warner, where Georgia started getting all the momentum. That's when they were able to start getting pressure and confuse the transfer out of Yale walk-on guy. So I'm going to give the offensive line a ton of credit. Even when we got that touchdown with Warner in, it was really all because of that offensive line playing great. We got some great blocking from Elijah Badger on that touchdown run. Badger blocks 2 guys and allows Jackson to cut into the end zone for a touchdown. So I'm just going to give the O-line a lot of credit. I thought they blocked well early on, too, when Lagway had the ball. And then if Lagway stays in the game, it does add more of a threat with him running, so the defensive line can't just focus on the running back. He really changes that game so much. But I'm going to stay with where I was. got to give the offensive line all the credit. Not all the credit, but a lot of the credit. Number 2. This puts Florida in a really interesting position here. Because you look at it, as much as I talk about how well we have played the past month of football, starting with that UCF game, it's like, man, that's a team that, if this is the team that started the year, we're probably not looking at a 4-4 start. Maybe we're probably looking at us beating A&M, because A&M didn't really play insanely crazy that game. But like, that's probably a win against this team. But you have to look at it. This puts the administration, the boosters, the athletic director in an interesting spot for they have to decide to keep Napier or not. Because here's the thing. I had Donnie, the comment, he said earlier, we're going to have a really good team next year. Which could be true. I do kind of lean that way on what it could be. But it's also like, man, if this team just loses so many more games, to where you have a coach who has 3 straight losing seasons, and including back-to-back 5 and 7 seasons. Recruiting class is already in the dumps. Can you keep him? Can you look in the mirror and say, man, just because we have the potential to be good next year, I don't know how the end of the season is going to play out. I'll get into that. But, man, it really makes it a really difficult job on these guys. Because no matter the decision they make, there's going to be flack. They're going to get hated on for it. They don't fire him especially. There's already fans who, even if you point out the good things in this team, they're just going to knock it off as we still lost. Because to some people, all that matters is your record, and they don't care about the future. They just care about what already has happened. Well, I mean, Donnie says it right here. Tough schedule. Y'all stay tough. It will pay off next year. I mean, what if we keep Billy and players do transfer? I mean, I'll get into that. I don't want to get into that now. Number 1 is the defense for good. This is a pretty easy pick. I mean, man, this defense was so bad at the beginning of the season. Even that Mississippi State game where we won, I'm not going to say that we won that game, so that's where we started looking better. We did not look good against Mississippi State that much. I mean, we looked all right, but like we did not look this good against Mississippi State. But man, this defense just keeps getting better and better. They're probably facing the best offensive line they've played so far. Maybe Miami better. I mean, maybe Miami is better, but like Georgia's definitely the most talented offensive line they've played so far. And we were still getting pressure. We were still making a bunch of nice run stops. We were still getting TFLs. In the past 4 games, this team has 8 interceptions. I'm pretty sure all of last year we only had 3. I mean, man, you just got to give this defense all the credit in the world. The game, we're having a backup QB who isn't doing anything. And the defense still goes out there and gets 3 and outs and gets stops, gives the offense a chance to stay in this game. So you just got to give your flowers to the defense. And I'm going to be really intrigued how this defense ends the year. Because I think this defense ending the year on a good note, even if the record might not signify it, will really tell the future of this program under Billy. Number 1, the bad. I mean, there's really no other options than injuries. I mean, I already told you guys earlier. I don't know. I don't think it's necessarily a strength and conditioning thing because, like, getting these legs injuries on this field, it was happening with Georgia too, and it happening with so many players. Maybe they need to hit legs more or something. I don't know how that works. I'm not a doctor. I don't have a degree in sports medicine. But the injuries really killed us and really, I'm not going to say lost us the game because this is still the second best team in the country. So we still could lose this game even without these injuries. But really took away from us the chance to see this team at its best. I'll say that. But Mouse is right there. But man, guys, we've talked. So Donnie's already pointed out that this team could look good next year. Our next talking point is going to be about 2025, because I feel like at this point as a program, all you have to look forward to is the future. I have a weird way of looking at things that's pretty difficult to explain typing out. I've gotten into some pretty long conversations because I've nothing else to do today besides plan this video and watch my Jags, who I assume, unless some crazy miracle happened, took home an L 28-23. Yep. At least I'm going to get a pretty big win in fantasy and advance to 7-2. So I know ball, guys. And my college football fantasy team is back in first place. I put up 1,300 points. Oh my goodness, guys. This team is crazy. I have to show y'all later in the year, especially after I win this title. Get to Donnie's comment real quick because I don't want to forget about it. Just don't turn the ball over like we did. Yeah. I mean, here's the thing, though. We're going to have to score. I'm looking into my Texas prediction. I don't have an exact score off the top of my head at this moment, but once I talk myself through this game, hopefully I don't talk myself into picking Florida. I mean, hopefully I do, because I'll be so much confidence, but hopefully I don't try to overestimate how good we can do in this game. But I will defend it a little bit. Let's talk about Florida's 2025 potential. I'm a big Finn fan as well as my dogs. Yo, did you guys lost. That's right. And I saw, I have Devon A-Chain in fantasy, so he went crazy for me. I saw in that final play, for people who had the bets of Tua Tagovailoa's over, he had it by like 7 yards. And then on the final play, Jalen Waddle trying to make a play, runs back like 24 yards. And that's probably one of the worst beats I've seen. That's as bad as it gets, man. But let's get into the Florida's 2025 potential. Florida's schedule next year, still top 5 most difficult schedule in the country from an early perspective. It is a bit easier. I mean, when you say top 5 worst schedule, it's not easy. I mean, it's not Ole Miss's schedule or Missouri's schedule from this year. But, I mean, compared to this gauntlet, maybe the hardest schedule of all time, it is much easier than that. But we open up the season with Miami again. Or I don't know if the order, but I know we play at Miami. At Miami. I mean, Miami as a road game. That's as neutral site of a road game as it gets, really. And not as home as a neutral site gets, as you'll see, like, when teams will play a bowl game where it's the Sugar Bowl. Is it Sugar Bowl that plays in Atlanta? I think so. Or it was the Sugar Bowl. Where teams will come to Georgia and they'll play in Atlanta. That's basically just a Georgia home game. But let me restart this for the video. What does Florida's team look like in 2025? Well, if we see how Florida ends this season, I think that's going to really determine a lot. Florida still plays Texas, LSU, Ole Miss, and FSU in that order. 3 of those teams are ranked inside the top 16. I think Ole Miss is 16, maybe 15. I haven't really looked at the new AP poll that much. So, how do we end this season? Well, I think the biggest question is, what is DJ Lagway's injury? He's getting his MRI done as of today, November the 3rd on Sunday. We were told he's getting his MRI done today. I'm going to take one last look to make sure we haven't gotten any update on his MRI. Which I see nothing. So hopefully we'll get that update on Monday the 4th. But to this point, from here... Okay. Without Lagway, this offense is going to be really tough to handle. It's going to be tough for the quarterback, the Aiden Warner or Clay Millen, to handle. Yeah, it's brutal for any team. As we saw versus Georgia, once Warner got in, the team scored 10 more points. I mean, the offense just kept I mean, really, it's just a lot of QB play, man. I mean, you bring in Aiden Warner, and I'm going to give him some points that will make you say, hey, maybe there's a chance. This was his first time playing an FBS level or FBS team at the level of Georgia. Comes in mid-game, probably didn't expect to play. I mean, who expects the backup to get hurt after the starter's already gotten hurt for the season? They probably didn't have a game plan ready for Warner to go in. And if they did, or they probably did, but at a very minute level. So now they're going to have a week to prepare Warner a game plan, get some early drives, maybe find more things that he is comfortable with, and also open up the run game. They did score 10 points on the most talented defense in the country in Georgia. So that is a bright spot. 10 points isn't really a bright spot. But when you look at the other teams we play, Texas defense is still very suspect. It's a good defense. Don't make me wrong there. But it's not as good as Georgia's defense. I mean, I saw in the comments saying the kid only made one mistake. He also didn't do anything to help the team. Because it's not if you don't make the mistake. Because here's the thing. Let's say we go into this Texas game and he doesn't make mistakes. He's still really not that great of a thrower. So we're going to need him either to grow a lot in this 1 week he has to prepare, or we're going to need Billy Napier to come up with a game plan, maybe find some like wildcat stuff to run that can get the defense on its feet. Because right now, if you're a Texas fan, if you're a Texas coach, you're a Texas player, and you see Aiden Warner starting, they're 100% committing to stopping the run. And maybe you'll have a couple drives of success that can get us a couple scores. But outside of that, maybe we get a big play. Texas should be able to stop it. It will take a Herculean effort from our offense to just only have a run game and still put up enough points to win. Okay, then you look at the LSU game. So say we lose that Texas game. Go into that LSU game, because this is looking at 2025. The defense is what matters really in these final 4 games. Because if the offense struggles with Aiden Warner, it's just like, man, you can't really blame the O-line for not making space because they're run committing. LSU, say we lose that. Say we lose some close games throughout the entire time where maybe the defense is shutting them down in the first half, but then come the second half, they're just insanely wore out. And then let's say we lose like a 27 to 13 type of games where it's just keep it close, but the offense just can't sputter enough to win the games. Well, here's the thing. You look at it, say we finish 5-7, say we still beat FSU, we lose to LSU, we lose to Ole Miss, we lose to Texas, we finish 5-7. You got to give the team credit, I feel, if they keep those games close. I'm not saying that's what I think is going to happen. I'm not saying that's what's going to happen. But if they keep it close, that defense going into next year is going to have a lot of hype on it. I mean, they're already suffering from a ton of injuries. It's a really young team, too. Still can't forget that Florida's one of the youngest teams in the country. So there's no reason to think that the defense would regress, hypothetically, if they keep playing at this elite level or good level they're playing at. If anything, we should think that they'll get better. I mean, especially if you count the fact that we should bring in some senior level transfers that can help this young bunch continue to grow. You go into 2025. If you're 5-7, keeping Billy Napier at 5-7 from a standpoint of just looking at records, he's 15-18 in his career, I believe, at UF. That's not the Gator standard. There's fans that if we go 5-7 that are calling for his head, even if those games are close, because all they care about is, did you win or lose? They don't care if it's against FCS. They don't care if it's against Georgia. A win is a win and a loss is a loss. I don't really see it that way. I'm on the track that if he keeps those games close, we don't lose a ton of players to the transfer portal. this defense will carry on to next year. I mean, I don't see why it wouldn't. So then you look at the fact that, hey, you played end of year 3-4 top 10 teams, depending on where everyone finishes, another 1 or 2 top 15 teams where you lost to them close, where if you just had a little bit more offense, if you just had less injuries, because I mean, if we're the most injured team in the country next season or in the SEC next season, then maybe that's a problem that's on strength and conditioning. But I mean, we're the most injured team in the SEC this year, where we probably win some of those games without it. I feel like you got to cut them some slack for that. Then you look at 2025. I mean, Miami without Cam Ward. What are they going to be? They're probably going to go for a transfer. I don't really think Emory Williams is the answer for them. Their defense looks insanely bad as of late. That's a game that with DJ Lagway with an improved defense, Jaden Ball, underratedly talented offensive line. I'm not going to say it's a very talented offensive line, but I feel like it gets a bit overhated. Although I do think it could be better. But I think it's better than a lot of teams it's better than a lot of other teams. For maybe we didn't get that elite guy that we could have got, but we still got a couple 4 stars, some high-level 3 stars that we've seen develop, like Bryce Levette. I have really loved what I've seen from Bryce Levette, and he's not starting. He's getting a ton of playing time, though, at both guard positions. Kenjai Harris will be starting again, his second year starting. Maybe we bring back a Jake Slaughter or Austin Barber, who will be senior-level guys. But there is the one thing a comment did just point out, making the assumption that these players will come back if you keep Billy. That is a possibility, but here's the way I look at it. Man, sorry. If this team continues to play hard for Billy at the end of this season and keep these games close, I don't see why they would leave. Because if this team is showing fight still, I don't know how many other teams you can say that you've seen at this point in the season that are still competing with top 10 level teams, top 15 level teams. And you get to the point to where they find a way to keep their coach, where they leave. They enter the transfer portal. They go somewhere else. Because they would have quit on Billy if they were going to enter the portal. They would quit on the team, not on... Yeah, they would quit on the team, not on themselves trying hard. But from a teammate perspective, they would go to try and make individual plays to boost themselves instead of trying to make plays for the team to where maybe now they're not getting that sack, but they're still contributing to make the incomplete pass happen instead of going for that selfish sack play that wouldn't even be guaranteed to happen. Interesting point there. If Napier is fired, you got to make a list of 10 to 20 candidates. Yeah, you do, because Billy was really the only candidate. Let's get back onto this topic. Sorry. So Miami, without Cam Ward, don't know who the QB is going to be. If we have Lagway, we return this defense, still have Jaden Ball, Aiden Micelle. Already said underrated talented offensive line. That could be a win. USF should be a win. Florida A&M should be a win. FSU should be a win. Okay. So you're hoping to look at 4-0 in the non-conference. But, we'll say maybe we trip up to an FSU or Miami. Maybe one of them's better. Maybe Miami ends up getting a big transfer QB. So I would hope it's 4-0. Then you look, okay, hosting Tennessee. Tennessee hasn't won here in forever. In my lifetime, they've never won in the Swamp. Nico, maybe he takes that next stride. Maybe he doesn't. The defense is going to lose a lot for Tennessee because they're experienced NFL draft type players. If the offense doesn't take a step, that's going to be a game we're favored in, a game we probably should win. We're going to play Kentucky on the road. Kentucky, they're just going down. We don't even know if Mark Stoops will be their coach next year. Kentucky should always be a win. Ole Miss loses nearly its entire starting lineup, and a lot of their two deep. That's a game that you should probably have as a win, even if it's at Vaught Hemingway. We don't even know if Lane Kiffin will be their coach next year. Heard some murmurs of him going not just to places like Florida, but some other places in the Big Ten or to get out of the SEC. Don't take that with a grain of salt, though. He could stay. So then you look at the rest of our schedule. Hosting LSU. They should lose Garrett Nussmeier to the NFL. I mean, they might not. I mean, that's a game where we've seen their defense. Maybe their defense finally takes that step like ours, I feel like, has. So that's possible. I feel like that's a game that you just don't really trust them to win. They're either going to be probably starting a transfer, or if they keep Bryce Underwood, true freshman QB. Okay, I feel hyped about our freshman QB, so I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. But it's a game on the road in Death Valley, though. I'm not going to say it should be a win. I'm not going to say it should be, but it could be. So then we look at the other games on our schedule at A&M. A&M is getting better and better. That's a game that could go 50-50, but in College Station. So maybe you lean A&M there. Texas comes to the Swamp. I'm going to be honest. Arch Manning's going to be starting for Texas next year, likely. I don't think he's that good. I don't think they're going to lose a lot of their offensive weapons. That's a game that could be a win. Would probably be favored. If what I'm saying comes true in this scenario, that's a game that could be a win. Should be a win. Or not should, but would be favored in. So then you're just looking at Georgia. Game. I mean, man, we should have beat them this year. No reason to see why we couldn't beat them next year. I mean, that's a game where they're going to have a new starting QB. Maybe Jaden Rashada is going to end up being theirs. Oh, yes, at home, Mississippi State. Also, that's kind of like Kentucky, where it's probably going to be a win. Even if we suck, that should be a win. But then you're stuck to Georgia. I mean, rivalry game. We saw it this year. Anything can happen. The team keeps playing like it is. That's a game that Florida could win. I mean, then you're looking at a team that could be vying for a playoff spot because those could win games. There's probably 4 games at most that in this scenario would be possible losses. I'd say 2 of those are games where I would favor us. And then 1 is like 50-50. And then Georgia, where we would probably be underdogs. Well, we could still win. That's a playoff team. That's a team that could be in the playoffs in 2025. I just feel like this is something we need to talk about. Now, as I said at the beginning of this, the way we end this season determines that, because if the defense quits and I mean the offense can't do anything and we get blown out, Billy's going to be gone regardless. So I don't want to read too deep into that. I just want to say this team has the talent and potential that we've seen in the past 4 games. And if we continue seeing it, that could be a path we see later on. Could be. I mean, maybe all that still happens, and then Billy just poops the bed again, and we end up being trashed, and then we're just another year down the drain, and recruiting doesn't get better. And then we're just another year behind having to fire a coach. But we would save about $8 million in buyout money. There's a comment I wanted to look at. They played last year as well. Okay. I do want to point something out here. So there was a bit, the team did look better at the end of last year too. Before I get to the second part of that. The team did look a little better at the end of last year. That was also against FSU, who got blown out by 60 points. That FSU team, maybe a couple players, got blown out by Georgia by 60 points without Jordan Travis. And then Missouri. I mean, Missouri's just not that good of a team. They weren't elite last year. They were good. Like, we should have beat them last year still. I mean, but again, they're not the level of Tennessee is this year or Georgia is this year. It's where we're hanging with them. And then we see later on Texas and LSU and Ole Miss. Donnie, I see the Gators in the playoffs in 2025. See, I'm trying to decipher something about you, Donnie. I have another Georgia friend who's like, yeah, keep Billy. He's because they want us to keep Billy because he sucks. So he's just hyping him up. I'm trying to determine if that's your actual opinion or if you're just saying that so I don't know, because you want us to keep Billy because he sucks. Because here's the thing, if we just lose out the rest of these games like this badly, if we lose to FSU, it's over. I mean, even with Aiden Warner, we should be able to beat FSU. But I just feel like it's something we kind of need to look at and take a step back, take a deeper look than just the wins and losses. I know at the end of the day, that's all that matters. But I think what matters more than your past wins and losses is the future wins and losses. Go, Rob. Because I don't care if he's gone 15 and 18 to this point. If we end up going, sorry, that's 33 games right there. If we end up going like 25 and 8 in the next 3 years, you know? So there's that. I get the frustration. You have all the right to be frustrated. You have all the right to want Billy fired. Hey, I wanted Billy fired after last season because I didn't think Billy had what it took to make the changes that we somehow did in the bye week in the bye week this year. So I fully understand where you are coming from. And, I can't say you're wrong. I don't, because we don't even know how the season will end. That's why I was saying it's all hypothetical. I just feel like we should talk about the potential of the team. But I do see your perspective of it. And I mean, hey, especially if you can tell me you get a coach who can keep a lot of this team together next year, then hey, I think it'd also be a fun team next year. So there is that. Lagway will make all the difference. I mean, that's it. I mean, even Graham Mertz might have beaten Georgia. Because Graham Mertz could also, like I said, I know we lost say people call Graham Mertz as a game manager. I think he's kind of underrated from his leadership aspect as well. He has a good arm. I mean, and his pocket awareness is way better than Aiden Warner's was. Aiden Warner had a clean pocket. Aiden Warner had a great pocket, and he scrambles out of it, and could have had a first down. Mertz is making those plays. Okay, Rob. Tyler, what you're not getting is it doesn't take a great to good head coach 4 years. Mike Norvell took 3 years to get a good team. Mike Norvell was off to a worse start than Willie Taggart was. It took Mike Norvell about 3 years to get a good team, and you started seeing that improvement at a late point. There were already FSU fans calling for his head. Now, FSU's now 1-8, so there is that. But his team isn't necessarily fully built on the portal. It's a lot built on his guys. His recruiting and development has been better than Norvell's has. I mean, are there other? I'm trying to think of other examples of coaches that maybe took a couple years to get going. I mean, it's pretty tough to look at. I mean, Clark Lee's now getting things going in his 3rd or 4th season as well. I mean, Napier's younger than a lot of new coaches are too. And he was younger and he inherited a bad situation. So his young, naive mistakes could also hinder him back to the point to where that first year is just thrown out the window because he made so many bad mistakes. And then the second year, I mean, here's like 4 years to get a winning season. I mean, that's not, I said, I mean, Rob, I also kind of did just say like, but Rob, if we kept, so I'm just going to ask you yes or no. If we kept this defense together, oh, I'm sorry, Rob, I missed an entire part of your question I meant to get to as well. The second part left the team last year. Okay. ETN left. I mean, I'd say our running back room is still pretty good. I mean, yeah, Etienne could elevate it a bit, especially now that we're mentioning Montreal. I don't think Etienne is a difference in this team. Maybe the Tennessee game. But you also got to look at it. Who else did we lose that was a big playmaker that had already been developed by this team that didn't leave 3 years ago when Napier first came here? I mean, McClellan left, which would have been big because now with Jamari Lyons, I feel like Jamari Lyons, who's our third string, probably better than McClellan. He has not been elite there. He's been decent. And I mean, you look at it, honestly, we've lost less guys than most teams do. It's honestly a transfer portal world for everybody. I mean, Georgia, they were missing Smail Monday in their linebacker one in that game. If they had Xavier Sorey, who transferred to Arkansas, they had Johnson Dumas, who transferred to Kentucky. That's a better team. That's a better Georgia team. So, I mean, you can't just say, I mean, see, it happens for everybody, the portal bug. It's like it could come and help us as well. Okay. But all that does matter is how this team finishes the season now. Because if we finish the season where we just get smoked by these next 3 games, and especially if we find a way to lose to FSU, because you have to try to lose to FSU if you're going to lose to FSU. I mean, that's just really the truth. I mean, Cal missing 2 field goals and not scoring in the red zone, that they made themselves lose to FSU there, giving FSU to win, really. But let's not talk about that. But how the season ends is where Billy's tenure is really determined. And where that begins, Florida, Texas. 11 a.m. kickoff, Central Time, 12 noon on the Eastern Time. If Florida didn't play Georgia the week before, I think a lot of people would be calling this a trap game. Because if, let's say, we played, I don't know, Ole Miss, and let's say we lost by like 1 score to Ole Miss, people would probably call this a trap game because the Florida team that showed obvious improvement. But now that, especially because Florida's missing DJ Lagway, I feel like it's a game where Texas doesn't really have to show all that much to win. Maybe they have to show a lot. Actually, okay. But, okay, well, I want to answer this last thing from Rob. I brought that up because look at Webb and Trey Wilson. I think they check out. One, it's not Trey like Trey. It's Trey as in like 3 TRE. Webb has already gotten passed by 2 other running backs. You have another freshman running back, Ken Daniels, who I think is honestly better than Webb. I mean, if you're telling me you think Webb's going to be playing over Jackson or Ball next season, Trey Wilson, slot receiver. We saw Aiden Mizell get that touchdown. I've seen Aiden Mizell improve a lot. Trey Wilson isn't as big of a loss. He is a big loss. He's a really good player. We are going to be losing Badger and DK, who are great receivers. But I also feel like we have young receivers like Aiden Mizell and Tank Hawkins. And hopefully an Abrams comes out. There's still the transfer portal. Badger and DK are both transfers. I don't think Trey is as big of a loss as this comment says it is, or you're not even trying to emphasize it, you're just saying it. So I'm just going to say that. And those guys didn't play against Georgia. They didn't play against Tennessee. Trey was a decoy. He did have that one play on the 4th down, but again, they haven't been part of the team that has shown insane improvement. I'm sorry. I got to keep this sweet, smooth for the videos. 11 a.m. Central kickoff, DKR Stadium, Austin, Texas. A lot of people would have called this a trap game if Florida hadn't have had to play Georgia before playing Texas. If Florida had to play, say, Ole Miss, or if Florida had to play Georgia, if Florida played, say, Ole Miss before instead of Texas, and Florida, let's say, would have lost to Ole Miss by 1 score or so, DJ Lagway stays healthy, Ole Miss just a little bit more talent, I think this would be considered a trap game. But now, you saw it in the first half, it wouldn't have been considered a trap game if DJ Lagway didn't get hurt against Georgia. Florida probably beats Georgia if Lagway doesn't get hurt. So it wouldn't have been considered a trap game, but also now, DJ Lagway isn't playing. I think we're at the point now to where this is a game where Texas, to win the game, won't have to show a lot. They should be able to play smooth, simple football to beat Florida. But if it could stay close, especially if this Texas team we've seen in the past, I mean, really, maybe the real Texas team. We don't even know how good this Texas team really is. So you look at offensively, we've seen Quinn Ewers has been hurt for a good portion of the season. Could have still been hurt for those last 2 games against Georgia and Vanderbilt. Excuse me. We've seen Arch Manning come in and replace him. Look good against inferior competition. Have some mistakes. Ewers does have nearly 1,400 yards on the season. 14 touchdowns. Look at this. 6 interceptions. 6 interceptions. Florida, in the past 4 games, 8 interceptions. Just saw it against Beck. Beck had a turnover problem. Florida took advantage of that. Kept it close. So looking at that side of the ball, Texas has also had a lot of injuries on their running back room. Their starting running back and Cedric Baxter, and I can't remember their backup. I'm pretty sure he's also hurt. They've had 3 different running backs who have played. They've all gone decent amount of touches. They've played well against those inferior competitions. Didn't really play insanely good against Georgia. Vanderbilt, back in, they played okay. They have Quinterius Windsor with 409 yards and 2 touchdowns. Jaden Blue, 316 yards and 4 touchdowns. And former 5-star out of Gainesville, Florida, Jarrett Gibson, 227 yards, 3 touchdowns. Gibson with significantly less carries than the other 2, yet still having good numbers. Through the air, they've played with different QBs, so, it's hard to get a full gauge of what this receiving room fully is. They have some good names there, talented guys, fast guys. Their leading receiver right now is tight end Gunnar Helm, who I'm pretty sure entered the season as the backup. He has 419 yards and 2 touchdowns. They have one of the best receivers in college football, former Gator commit, former Alabama player Isaiah Bond, 380 yards, 4 touchdowns. They have Matthew Golden with 332 yards and 4 touchdowns as well. They have a couple of youngsters in Ryan Wingo and DeAndre Moore, having 328 yards and 5 touchdowns for DeAndre Moore. Wingo 328 and 2 touchdowns. So they have some good weapons, but we haven't really been able to see what Texas is going to do with those weapons. But when you look at it closer on paper of this matchup, not on paper, but when you look at it, what we've seen on the field, Georgia dominated this Texas offensive line. That before this game, people were saying that this Texas offensive line might be the best in the country. They have maybe the number 1 offensive tackle prospect in Kelvin Banks. He's going to be a top 10 pick likely in the NFL draft. They have some good experience outside of him, but he's really the main highlight guy. But Georgia exposed them. I wouldn't say Vanderbilt did. Our edge group, they got a good amount of pressure on Carson Beck. Inconsistently, maybe. But that talented Georgia offensive line, who might be better than Texas, they still got enough pressure. And Quinn Ewers hasn't looked the same since he's came back from that injury. Even before the injury, they didn't play anybody, so we can't really tell there. But since he's come back from the injury, he's made mistakes. He's been insanely prone to turnovers. Florida's defense can take advantage of that. Now, Jason Marshall Jr. out for the season. Huge loss. didn't really affect us as much from corner one perspective. However, when you go down our corner list, we don't know the status of Devin Moore and Dejon Johnson and Jakeem Jackson. Jakeem hasn't played in a while, so I don't even know if I don't think he's even in question to play. Because then you have Cormani, and Florida was having to play its backup safety who was starting in exchange for a starting safety who's been out since Miami, now Nassau Turner. So he had to play at cornerback too, while our corner 5, Cormani, had to play. On that big play that really kind of, when Florida got their touchdown and Georgia came out on a third down, that could have put all the momentum into Florida. Cormani did get beat by the Georgia receiver. And I'd say Texas's receivers are a bit better, but the running backs aren't as good. So you have a situation where maybe you draw it back more often, maybe bring some secret blitzes, some hidden blitzes to come out, spook Quinn Ewers, make him make some turnovers that he's been making this season, and play a good first half of football. I think that's going to be key for something. Because we're getting to the offense now. Offensive line, the run blocking especially, has been pretty dang good. It's just the quarterback situation, man. Nobody we play is going to respect our QB. Unless DJ Lagway's injury report comes up and it's not that severe and he can play. Unless that happens, our passing game isn't going to be respected at all. However, we'll give Napier a chance to have a week to scheme up some plays for Aiden that he's comfortable with, that maybe surprises Texas, and maybe gives him a chance to get comfortable. Maybe if you get in a groove, build some confidence in him, and he has a week to watch his own film and see that, man, his pocket was clean then. He's got to trust his offensive line more. Does that happen, though? This Texas defense is still pretty good. They forced Beck to have 3 turnovers as well, just like we did. Outside of some mistakes on Texas, they also did pretty well against that Georgia defense or that Georgia offense. The run game, however, that's where Georgia won this game, where they had Trevor Etienne go crazy on him. So Beck's a way more respectable passer than Aiden is. So if we don't have that passing game from Aiden in any sort of way, really, the run game's just not going to open up enough to be consistent enough to where even if Montreal Johnson is back, even if he's not, if he's not, we still like Ball and Jackson. And all 3 of those guys are really good running backs. But if they don't have enough blockers, it's not going to matter because there's going to be a point to where your defense is going to get to the point where it's worn out and they can't get enough stops. So even if your offense hits a groove, this might be too late. Texas did lose last year 2 high-level NFL draft picks, and I don't think they've really recovered from it. I know coming into the season, a lot of people expected that defensive line to maybe not have as top end of a ceiling, but a way higher floor. But I think it's been a pretty big thing to where it's not the same as the playoff team they were last year. So we have Rob saying, maybe we should get Greg Smith ready for a Wildcat package. He is a safety, number 30 on the team, freshman safety. I'm not sure did he play QB in high school? I will bring up, we do have a running back who did play for Army West Point out of Mississippi, Kaheen Daniels. He played QB for them. Still, he was a runner though. He was kind of like that. It was that spread option system that you see at Army and Navy. But he did play QB for them, so he knows how to run an offense at a small level. Which, if we get to the point where we can't throw at all, we saw it. What year was it? 2019, maybe 2021. To where Kentucky's QB room was so hurt, they had nothing there. They put it to Lynn Bowden Jr. to run the Wildcat, and they still won 9-10 games. So if it gets bad enough to a point where we get there, Maybe you put a Greg Smith there, Kaheem Daniels. Maybe you put him out there and just commit to the run. I don't want to get to a point where we're kind of like Iowa, where we keep a dumbed down offense of mostly runs and just hope the defense can keep us in it long enough and make mistakes. Because we see those teams like Iowa, they don't really have the talent. So when they play like an Ohio State or a Penn State, they just get blown out, or not blown out, but they get beat pretty easily if they don't get blown out. It's a really worrisome situation. I mean, and special teams, we gave Georgia a touchdown virtually, or we gave them points. They got a touchdown. It could have been a field goal. But, I mean, we gave them points off of the bad snap or bad catch from the holder. I don't know what it was. I have to rewatch that part again. But we also can't give them this game like that. So special teams also has to do its part. So how do I think this game is going to go? Well, I think maybe we can get a couple drives to where we have something up our sleeves to catches Texas off guard that can get us a couple points. Maybe we get a turnover. I'm going to say at halftime, the score is something like 10-6. Defense keeps it close. We'll get a couple field goals. But the defense, I think, no matter what happens, I have a feeling we're not going to be on the field a lot on offense. So the defense is just going to be on the field the entire first half. Besides, we see like a big play or get a turnover that allows us to kick those field goals. Then we get to the second half. Maybe there's a big play by defense early on, like how there was the Pyburn interception against Georgia. That allows us to not let them pull away so quickly. But then come the fourth quarter, I think the defense is going to be on the field for possibly 40 minutes of this game. I mean, unless they just absolutely shock me, I think the defense is going to be on the field this entire game virtually. So I'm going to take Texas to win this one 26 to... Do I think we get a last minute, maybe a late touchdown? I'm going to say 26-12. No. Yeah, I'm going to say 26-12 because that gives me a leeway that we could go for 2 and not get it if we get a touchdown, or we could just get 2 more field goals. But it's just not enough. And I just have to pick Texas because the QB situation. We got some more comments from Mark himself, voice of college football. Gators have played much better than most thought across the nation. I wouldn't even say than most have thought across the nation. I would also just say the Gators have played better than most across the nation. If you take away these big injuries, the Gators likely have 2 top 10 wins, at least 1 with another very close game. I mean, if you're looking at a team that beats 2 top 10 teams or beats 1 and then has another close game, this is a Florida team that it's like there's no reason that they couldn't beat a Texas or an Ole Miss or an LSU. If we stayed healthy, there's a legit chance you could be looking at Florida and like, hey, they might be 5-3 or beat Tennessee. I mean, say we lose Tennessee, still Mertz gets hurt. Might be 5-3. But they beat Georgia. Lagway looked really good. That defense looked really good. Florida could beat Texas. Florida could have beat LSU. Florida could have beat Ole Miss. Maybe there would have been a playoff line there. We're back. My Wi-Fi crashed, everybody. Everybody already left at this point, unfortunately. That was not planned to happen. Wi-Fi never crashes, so I don't know why that happened. But we were near the end of our show, at least. Well, updated odds that Napier keeps his job. So the odds that Napier does keep his job really does depend on how we end this season. And it's not from necessarily a win-loss perspective. Like, we have to beat FSU. If he loses to FSU, the odds that he keeps his job are near zero. But it's really more about the Texas LSU Ole Miss game. If he can play competitive, cover those spreads, if he can keep those games close to where the defense just gets tired because the offense, the Yale walk-on QB, can't do anything, then I'll say, you know what? Give him the chance with DJ Lagway next year, a healthy roster, to go on and do hopefully great things. I mean, it's going to be difficult because I kind of feel bad for him. I feel bad for him, feel bad for the team. He finally gets things going, and they just get hit with the injury bug so badly, man. I can't think of another team that is as injured as the University of Florida is. I don't know if I've seen a Florida team ever this badly injured. I mean, maybe you go back to that 2013 team that did go 4-8. But I mean, was that Skylar Morningwig? Because he ends up starting the game where we lose to Georgia Southern. I think he was the third string as well. I'm not sure about the rest of the team. So it's like, you can't really quote me on that. Probably have some players that I just like scratches for that game. But it really just depends on how this season ends, guys. Well, I am getting more issues with my Wi-Fi, so I'm going to end the show here now. I want to thank everybody who showed up, everybody who is still here even after the crash. You guys are the best. Follow me on Twitter at twhitforgator with a 0, because I can't take the O for some reason. I will be live every Sunday. We might have a change of plans, though. Can't really get too much into that. But for now, every Sunday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We will be live for a post-game show for Florida versus Texas. So you can tune into that. That's really probably where we're going to see if Napier can keep his job or not in that game. So that's going to be a big game, big stream, and hopefully a fun time for us. And Rob saying it's a good show. So thank you very much, guys. I will see you maybe in a video with news on updates for DJ Lagway, other players, maybe recruiting updates if we get anything with that. Have a good night, everybody. Have a good week.